get all the stuff you need. You call a guy and he comes in and paints, right?
Well, that's true, but it's not always the smartest way to go. I mean, I've told you the story about the party. Remember when I was getting the house?
No.
Do you have just a minute?
Oh,
I'll give it to you.
You got
okay.
I got
so
4
here's
hours,
the story. I mean,
please stretch.
Can you make it longer? Right? No. We moved into a new house after the neighborhood burned and all that stuff. We finally got into a new house, and Courtney is has all these visions about I want to change this wall and I don't like this color and I want that color, and I'm sort of like whatever. Okay. I mean, I'm not disinterested, but it's sort of her baby.
Sure.
So she talks to a bunch of painters because, as Tim says, we wanted to get somebody who was, expert at painting. And this young guy comes in, and I met all the painters, and this young guy has all these ideas. And I could see where there was a spark and a connection between Courtney and this young guy,
Right.
His name
is now Mr. Courtney.
We'll just call him Willie, okay?
Okay.
Because that's his name. All right. So Willie and Courtney hit it off, and I totally see how Willie is a good creative mind and could bring a lot of ideas and that youthful enthusiasm to the project, right?
Correct.
So he gives us a quote, and Courtney then comes to me and says, we need to give him this much money and blah 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 so we can get the supplies. Okay, sure. So we haven't moved in yet. He's starting this job before we move in. We're going to finish all the painting, finish all the floors, finish everything, and then we're going to move in rather than have all this stuff going on while we're.
Best way to do it.
It's also very, very hot during this time of year that this is all happening.
Okay.
This did not happen. This is not ancient history. It's very recent history. Okay. So it was super hot, and there's a pool. And he calls after showing us a couple of things. He decided to paint a door a certain color that was kind of breakthrough and a cool idea, and a couple of other. There's things we'd been by the house to see, and he was, you just working out the color scheme. And then he calls us on one of these super hot days within the first few days of him starting the job, and he said, "It's really, really hot." And we had the air conditioning on, and even some of the doors open goes, so, you've got the paint fumes and you've also got the air conditioning. I want to give the guy every break. I don't want him to have to, asphyxiate as a result of these fumes. So you're trying to do all you can because it's so very hot. And he said, do you mind if we use the pool? And because I'm super cool that way, I said, no problem. Sure. I mean, after you get done with the job, if you want to, jump in at the end of the day, it's fine. This is like the end of the first day, So don't think anything of it. Come by the house the following day. Doors are open. Paint is everywhere. On the hardwood floor.
Oh, no.
It was crazy. I thought, what's going on here? Walk out to the pool, and there are beer bottles and beer caps to beer bottles everywhere. He'd had a party. The painter had a party. And I turned to Courtney.
I love young people, man. They're great.
I said, hey, your buddy had and she is, she's very emotional. So she's virtually in tears, and I don't know how I can do this. My guy, he's, I feel so close to him and how he could do this. This is terrible. And, that was his last day on the job, right. Obviously. But it's kind of to your point. All right, so we didn't just swing by and pick somebody up to do it, but might have been better off just swinging by and getting somebody to do it. Had this guy that she was so bonded with, and he's going to Leonardo da Vinci, and instead he has, it's National Lampoon.
That's it. But it happens with a lot of people. Once they bid the job, they lose tremendous interest in it. And now they've got to do the work, and the work is a pain in the ass, and they're on to their next job, right? So that's why, a friend of mine put a pool in Burbank, and it was supposed to be a 3-month job. it took nearly 3 years. There was lawyers involved. There were, fights involved. There was a ton of crap involved because this guy would bid the job and then he would show up every once in a while, but they're on to the next job. It's like in sales. Radio sales is a bad example because those guys are really good at what they do. But most of the time in sales, once they close the deal and they don't want to do the work, they're on to the next gig. Plus he's a young guy, right? Young people do that. Young people take advantage. I remember when I was young, we used to take advantage of crap like that as well. A guy had a nice pool and we'd have, bunch of people over and in the house and, and we'd take advantage.
Wait a minute. You did something along the lines of what I described?
I wasn't working for the guy, but I remember somebody said there's a huge house in Beverly Hills and one of the girls knew somebody who worked at this house. And they said the guy who owns the house is going to be out of town with his family. And we had 50 people over at that house. And then the wife got home early the next day, at 6 a.m. unexpectedly. And she went berserk.
Wow.
Yelling at everybody, yelling at me. She had no idea who any of us were. She goes, "Why are 50 people in my house?" It's just going absolutely crazy.
When we come back, if there's time, I told you the story about Wayne Gretzky being out of town and getting invited to his house. Did I?
Oh, no. You were at Gretzky's?
Yeah. I'll tell you that.
All right, that's a great
It's just what you described. Yeah, I'll tell you about that.
Okay. All right, we're live on KFI. More now with Crozier. KFI AM 640. It's Conway Show. Mark Thompson's with us. I was telling that story real quick before we get into your Gretzky story. I was telling the story of how I ended up at a house in Beverly Hills with 50 people, and I guess we weren't supposed to be there. And everybody was swimming in the pool, and they're, sleeping in rooms and stuff like that, drinking and smoking. It was a real crazy party. And at one point, I looked over, and on the couch was Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore is at this party. I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. Well, what I didn't know, and somebody in the hallway convinced me to tell this on the air because I was not going to. It was Drew Barrymore's mom's house that we were all at.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that until, the next day, her mom comes into the house and she had a very, very strained relationship with her mom. When Drew Barrymore was 13, I think on the day she turned 13, her mom put her in a psych ward in Van Nuys for a year and a half where you couldn't do anything or else you were thrown in a padded room. And when she was 13, she was thrown into this psych ward, this nut house, for a year and a half. And this is shortly after that. I think maybe we were 16, 17, maybe, I don't know, maybe 18 or 19. I don't remember. It's a little foggy. But I don't think that helped the relationship between Drew Barrymore and I think it's Jade is the mom's name.
It is.
It is Jade?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. And so I felt bad about that, right? Because I didn't know. There's a bunch of people going to a house. I was sort of aware we weren't supposed to be there. I caught on to that. But if I knew it was Drew Barrymore and she already had a strained relationship with her mom, I definitely wouldn't have gone and piled on. But man, when I saw that,
but you're saying she was there.
She was there.
You're saying when you look over, you see her, right?
Right, but I don't think that she had permission to have 50 people over at her mom's house.
Yeah, but she is there. I mean, I see what you're saying though, but you only knew part of the story,
right?
She didn't really care what her mom thought because she wasn't really
right. But I'm not even sure she was supposed to be there.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Now I get it.
And it was a really creepy morning because it was 6 a.m. Everyone's being kicked out. The place wasn't a mess, but you could tell a lot of people were there. I always felt bad about that. All right, so you and Gretzky are good friends? That's that?
Not really. I've never met Wayne Gretzky, but I have been to his home. And here's what happened. I'll just tell the story quickly. I was part of the L.A. club scene that night. At a bar on Sunset Boulevard, a club and lounge bar called Bar One. Bar One was, I always said, if heaven's got a bar and lounge and dance place, it's Bar One. Yeah. It just was everything great. I couldn't believe I was there, to be honest. I just thought it was just unreal.
I was at bar 7.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. The outer circles, eventually work yourself up to bar 1. Right. Work the smaller markets first.
That's right.
Yeah. So I later actually met in one of my rescue groups. And it's pet orphans in Van Nuys.
Oh, yeah.
Pet orphans, one of the volunteers is the old doorman at bar 1. And when we connected, he said, hey, I was the doorman at bar 1. I used to see you all the time. I go, wow. Anyway, so I'm there one night, and Wayne Gretzky's, I want to say cousin, but it might have been nephew, was a younger guy, like much younger than Wayne Gretzky, it seemed to me. And I thought it was his nephew because I thought he said, I've got my uncle's house for the weekend. And I thought, oh, that's cool. He goes, yeah, everybody's coming over. And I go, wow, that sounds kind of cool. And I knew that he was some relation to Wayne Gretzky, and I knew he was talking about Wayne Gretzky's house. And I thought, wow, this is kind of cool, but your uncle's away? He said, oh, yeah, he's away for the week. So it's kind of strange because he's left this kid in control of his house, and now this kid is having an after party. So we'll be there. If I left right at the closing time, I'd get there probably about 2:30 in the morning or 2:20 in the morning, which is exactly what time I got there because I went right there. It was in Beverly. It's up Beverly Glen at the time. It was way up Beverly Glen in a gated community, I think. And so I get there, and there are not a lot of people there. Maybe 20 people are there. And the first thing I do is I survey the whole house. I want to see the whole place. I mean,
Does he have a lot of trophies and hockey sticks and pucks?
Oh, my God, does he ever? You would have loved it.
Oh, man.
A hockey fan would have loved it. He's got pucks and trophies and awards and pictures. Oh, it was so good. And sticks that have been put up on the wall.
Wow.
It was so cool, right? And then, he's married to Janet Jones, is it?
Yes.
Sharon, is that who it is?
Yeah, Janet Jones.
Yeah. And she had like a wall because she's a model, and she's got pictures and articles and stuff she's done, and that's all up on one part. And as I recall, they had a gym there that was like really, tricked out, as you might imagine. And it was really a nice house, of course. And so I walked through quickly, saw all the stuff, but then it hit me. I got to get out of here because with all of these valuable things here, and they're not just valuables like because they can be sold on eBay, but they're valuable because they're valuable to this guy. They're connected to his life. Yeah, they're emotional things. I do not want to be here because one of these a-holes who's been invited here, because I'm one of them, and he doesn't know me, and he knows a lot of other people there, and he invited essentially the whole bar. They're going to walk away with something, and I want to be able to say, hey, dude, I went there for a minute. I walked through the house just as I've said on KFI, and then I left, okay, which is the absolute truth. So I left right away, and as I left, I will never forget this. You know that scene from like the zombie movies where there's like a whole ton of the zombies walking toward you?
Yes.
Or in Michael Jackson's Thriller where they're all dancing toward you, whatever. That was the scene coming up the front lawn of Gretzky's house. It was everybody from the bar, women, men, literally it looked like they had just stopped cars on Sunset and said, hey, head to Gretzky's house. And they all just invaded that house. But I was leaving. It was like, I was gone. So never heard that there was an incident. So it's possible that everybody, went in and left without any issue. But it's sort of to what you're saying, which is, I just didn't want to be there because there was more going on there than met the eye. It was clearly not a sanctioned event.
Right, and the cops show up and there's something missing, and you're going to have to vouch for it or identify the guy that took it. It's a mess. It could become a
Mark
huge
Thompson
mess.
from Fox 11 caught at Gretzky's house. Yeah, I don't need that.
Well, we don't have time to tell the show. Maybe I'll tell it when we come back. But a friend of mine was very good friends with Meryl Marco, and she was David Letterman's girlfriend. And David Letterman was in New York. He was doing the Letterman show. And Meryl Marco was going to go to New York to see him, and they needed somebody to house sit. And my friend was going to house sit David Letterman's house in Malibu. And he calls me and he goes, "Hey, buddy," he goes, "I got Letterman's house for the weekend."
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, "Oh, buddy, because Letterman was like a god to me, right? I mean, I would watch his show and tape it and then watch it again in case I missed anything. And I would just sit there and study the Letterman show. It's the greatest show in the world. And he said, "You want to come by?" And I said, "Absolutely." Well, something happened when it was only the two of us. And so they knew something, who to blame because it was just me and him. KFI AM 640, it's Conway Show. Now, Mark Thompson's with us. Mark, are you friends with Meryl Marco? Do you know her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Know her well.
Okay.
Yeah.
She may recall this story. And if you can apologize to her for this, you could do me a huge solid. So a buddy of mine is house sitting David Letterman's house out in Malibu. It's nothing spacious. It was like 2 or 3 bedrooms, like a sort of like a log cabin-ish type thing. I remember, not an exceptionally, manicured yard or anything. Something like David Letterman would have. So I get out there, and I brought some beers out there, and we had a couple of beers, and we're sitting in David Letterman's house. Right? It's a weird thing. And then my buddy says, "Hey, should we go through his stuff?"
Oh, my God.
Wow.
And I said, "I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable doing that." I said,
"You take the bedroom, I'll take the living room."
I said, let's just like open it. He has a closet that was near the TV. I said, let's just open the closet and see what Letterman's life is like. We're not going to take anything. Just say, open the closet. And there was a stack of old 3/4-inch cassette tapes. And one of them said, on one of them, the tape said, "Man on the Street outtakes, not for air, ... ever." Right? And we were huge fans of the show. So I'm like, oh, I got to see what's on this tape. Did something happen? Did Letterman go crazy on somebody? Did somebody go crazy on Letterman? I got to see what happened here. So he said, "Okay, we're not going to go through anything, but let's play that tape. We agree?" Yeah, he goes, "Yeah, all right, let's put that tape in." So we put that cassette in. And it's this big 3/4-inch machine. The machine weighs like 150 pounds. And it takes a long time for it to wind and it gets rolling. And it comes on, and it's Letterman doing, man on the street interviews. And then all of a sudden, it stops, right?
Oh, my God. This is great. This is great.
And so we are like, oh, no. Let's rewind it. Just put it back. I can't get the tape out.
Oh, this is just the best.
I can't get this tape out of the machine, right? It got caught in there, and it's stuck in there, and you can hear it like winding itself.
Oh, this is just delicious.
And I'm like, oh, no, we are effed, right? Because we went into his closet and took a tape that we weren't supposed to play, and we're panicked out of our minds, right? So we spend a couple hours thinking about how we're going to do this, right? Make some phone calls. Nobody's open on a Saturday to help us out. And he's coming back, or Meryl Marker's coming back like on Monday. And no one's open on a Sunday back then. So my dad has the same machine. So I called my dad. My dad's pretty handy. I said, "Hey, Dad, can you know how to take one of these things apart?" He said, "Yeah, I could take it apart and fish the tape out for you." And he says, "Where are you?" I said, "I just at a buddy's, but the tape thing's not working, so we wanted to come over. Can we bring it over to your house and you help us out?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, come by the house," right? So we take this big, huge machine, and now we're taking it out of Letterman's house, right? Put it in a car, and we drive it to the valley. And my dad, stops what he's doing. He takes the cover off. He takes this screw off, that screw off, this. And he can't get that tape out either, right? It's jammed in there. And now my dad forgets how to put the thing back together.
Oh, my God.
He puts the lid on. There's 5 or 6 screws missing, and one of the heads that he took off was sitting there, and it's all like a mess. And so we take it back over the hill to Letterman's house. I'm like, we're just gonna have to fall on the sword here and just take the punishment. So we get to his house, and there's 2 LA County sheriffs at his house. And we pull up and we go, "What's going on?" He goes, "We got a report that people were taking stuff out, stealing stuff out of his house."
Oh, my
And we're like, no. That was us. And I came clean because all of a sudden this becomes, all of a sudden I'm doing 10 years. I'm like, no. This is us. We're house sitting for David Letterman's girlfriend, and we took his video machine to try to get it repaired. And I took it over to my dad's. My dad couldn't fix it, and so we're bringing it back. And he goes, well, why do you have to have it fixed? Why doesn't Mr. Letterman, just have it fixed when he gets back? Well, we were watching a tape we weren't supposed to watch, and it got caught in the machine. And this cop turns to his partner and turns back and goes, you guys are effed. Right?
Wow.
And that's exactly what we didn't want to hear at that point, right?
Yeah.
That we were totally screwed on this one. And we sat there literally like two bank robbers, right? After, we robbed the bank and we left behind a gun or, there's videotape and we see it on the news and it's us and we're waiting for the punishment. And so we said, look, let's put it back. We'll fish that tape out. And my buddy opens it up and I pull the tape out and there's tape, that comes out with it, right? And we cut it and put it in the closet, right? We had to cut the tape to get it out of that machine and put it back in the closet. And never heard a word about it. He never talked about it. I don't think he ever looked at that tape again.
Yeah, probably never did. You're right.
But for 3 weeks, I didn't sleep, right? Because this is David Letterman, right? And we're running around town trying to get this stupid thing fixed. But man, I will never ever do that again. That was a huge ass lesson to me.
Is pure sitcom though. Every beat of that story is sitcom. But here's how in the sitcom it works. One of the cops, he says to you what he said, which is you're effed, and then the cops are meeting in the car. They tell you to wait here, and then he says, "All right, I'll tell you what. My buddy works for the Geek Squad in his spare time at Best Buy.
Right.
And he's going to do it for you." And he actually is the ninja who, puts it all back together. And that's how the thing ends. And then something, if it's a sitcom, probably something else happens and you guys come clean. But
I thought it was going to have a heart attack.
I think
really
that is the greatest. Every beat of that story is great. Your dad helping out, your dad not being able to put it back together. Oh my God, that's great.
Man,
it really is great.
When he put it back together and there was that little, one of the audio heads that was out still, and there was like 12 screws that he couldn't find where they went. And then we plugged it in and it started making a noise. It was like, I'm like, man, we are screwed.
It's like, Dad, I thought you said you know how to do this. I do, but something's wrong. Oh, it's just
And I
great.
got a little pissed. I'm like, Dad, remember you always said to me, if you don't know how to do something, just say you don't know. And he's like, yeah, but I thought I knew how to do it. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't. This thing is
that's priceless.
We're screwed. I mean,
that's priceless.
And we didn't want anything to happen to it, so I'm sitting there. My buddy's driving, and I have it in my lap, right? And I'm driving around with this 3/4 inch big, Sony, tape recorder in my lap, like we're these two criminals, right? And it really did teach me a lesson. And it really did teach me a lesson. And it really did teach me a lesson. And it really